Okay, this video is going to be an introduction to the analysis panel, which is a temporal analysis panel, whereas we've previously covered all of the spatial visualization techniques. This is a way to visualize what different probabilities are and to understand how different boats compare against each other. So I'll just call attention to get to the analysis panel. It's within routes, you turn on analysis, and then you pop this analysis panel up. There's two types of graphs. There's absolute value graphs, for instance, the absolute rank of a boat as measured by time to finish. That's an absolute value. You're either number 1 or you're number 10 or you're number 15, but it's absolute, and if you're number 10, someone else can't also be number 10. There are also relative charts. So for instance, relative ranks relative to a reference boat. If you're the reference boat, someone else is either ahead of you by their TTF on the course, or they're behind you, and so they may have a relative rank of +1 or -1, and that's a relative chart. And for absolute charts, we don't need to define absolute is every boat or it's every course, but for relative charts, any of the relative charts need a reference, and because we need something to compare against that is relative, right? So let me just quickly go over the ideas of what these three panels do. This first panel is charts, graphs, I should say, of every individual route that is loaded. And so again, I've spoken about this on your visualization and the different layers, but it's very important to understand what you have loaded and what you have visible, because what you're looking at might or might not make sense. You might have multiple different courses, like, it's possible that you have one course set up going to Europe from New York. You might have another course set up with routes that are going from San Francisco to Hawaii, and it probably doesn't make sense for you to be looking at time to finish statistics for those routes. Nevertheless, if they're loaded, you can visualize whatever routes you have loaded. And so just make sure that you understand that the system is giving you the data for the routes that are loaded, and it's up to you to make sure that the routes that you have loaded are giving you useful data. So this first panel is, as I mentioned, all individual routes. They're all charts where over time, and you can see anywhere, it's our design language, anywhere in any chart where the x-axis is time, we always have a vertical red line, which is right now, and then we have a vertical blue line, which is wherever the time is selected. And so you can see as I change this around, it's changing where that blue line is, but the red line doesn't change, it's just moving as real time is moving. This page is, it's just a leaderboard page, but it's for all routes, all visible routes. And this page is for boats. And so a lot of these charts are green because they're relative. So I'm going to show you how you pick a reference and choose something relative to it. But the important thing for now is just this boat page. This is grouping your routes into statistics by polar, so that you can compare different boats rather than look at each route individually. Now on the left, we've got these options. One thing, so for instance, if I just pick a route, the other thing is I can pick a route just by clicking on it here. And I can go to the line color, and I can go down here and I can say ahead and behind. And here I've chosen a route, and these routes all have a common finish line, and so time to finish is defined the same for all of them, so it makes sense. And you can see that I can decide, do I want red to be is red bad? Is it bad because they're ahead, but meaning like their time to finish is less? and green is therefore green is good because they're slower, right? And this was just confusing me, and I can just change. What does red mean? Is red bad, or is red slow? And so now I can just change, and I can use this ahead behind just to indicate where boats are relative to, or which routes are relative to this route. Again, these are just routes, and so some of these are red and the same boat. Some of these are green and the same boat as the selected route, but it just tells you route by route what's ahead and what's behind. I also have this option, and this is just impacting chart views on the analysis panel, but I can pick a specific init time. And as always, there's usually multiple ways of doing things. Right now I have all init times, and I could, in my import filters, just get rid of certain init times. In my visibility settings, I could get rid of certain init times, but I also have the option here of just picking a specific init time of the ones that are loaded to understand how these charts are evolving as the models are changing. We also have the option to temporarily bin. So everywhere, all of these charts, the x-axis is always time. So that might be, it's usually, it's forecast time, but it might be in the past. And so you can just see these are just different dates for all the different routes. The x-axis is always time. So let's see. So I can interpolate down to an hourly level. I could do hourly, linear interpolation for things where if I only have a forecast that's 6 hourly, I could interpolate down to hourly. But I can also bin by time into buckets, and that will apply to all charts and all analysis in the analysis. And so, for instance, if I choose bin of 3 hours or 6 hours or 12 hours, you can see the impact. And if I am temporarily binning, then for a given route, let me just show you sort of visually. I'm just going to turn on positions, and yeah, we can leave that here. So I might want to bin. These are 6 hours apart. I can just tell by looking at them. So these are for forecasts that have 6 hourly values, valid times. But if I want to temporarily bin into bins of 12 hours, or let's just really crank it up to prove the point. If I'm binning into bins of 24 hours, nothing changes on the route visualization. But I need to decide, okay, for each 24-hour bin, how do I find the value from the 4 positions in this route that are in that 24-hour bin? And what these settings do is they tell you how do you find that value. And they give you 2 options. Remember, there's a distinction between relative charts, relative graphs, and absolute graphs. In the case of relative graphs, you have either a selected route or a selected boat that everything is relative to. And this gives you the option to choose a different methodology of temporal binning for your reference versus the competitors or the comparisons or everybody else who's not the reference. One reason you may want to do that is for comparing your worst case scenario against everyone else's best case scenario, or vice versa, your best case scenario against everyone else's worst case scenario. So it just gives you that flexibility. And your options are mean, median, min, and max. And generally, this is mean, median, min, and max of your timed finish. Similarly here, this is the drop down for how to do it for the compared, whatever you're comparing, whether it's routes or boats. So the only other setting is treating stops. So there are times where your VMG goes to 0. If your VMG is 0, or let's say it's close to 0, and you're going to have some finite distance to finish. And if you want to find your time, you are then dividing some distance. Your time to finish is the your time to finish is the distance to finish divided by your VMG. But if VMG is very close to 0, your value approaches infinity. And so while that might be mathematically correct, it isn't ultimately that useful. And so we have the option of treating stops either as mathematically correct or useful. And you can see what happens here on this chart. Okay, well, hopefully that should toggle to logarithmic view. But you can see that if you put it on mathematically correct, this chart now all of a sudden has these crazy values that are not the case. It becomes a little more useful when you clamp your VMG so that it can't be close to 0. I think each one of these will get its own, each one of these graphs maybe might get its own video. But the other thing I'll show, so what this page is showing again is individual ranks. We can color code our ranks by boat. This shows whatever the selected route is. So I can clear that selected route, and now I'm just looking at everything. And because it's color coded by boat, now I start to see some patterns in the chaos. But the other thing I can do is rather than display all routes, I can display only group statistics. And now this starts to be a little more useful. And my group statistics, in this case, it's the boat, is the group that I'm providing the statistics for. And so now I can see this is my absolute rank over time. And this is now my mean, min, spread, median, max of this boat, of this group, which happens to be a boat, at this time step. And so now I start to get a little more useful information from this. With all our charts, you can turn them off. You can zoom into them, pan them around, and reset them. So this first chart here is absolute rank over time. This second chart is change in rank per time step. So if your absolute rank is changes from one time step to the next, again, grouped by, in this case, boats, but you can group by whatever you want. Boat per model, boat and model and date, init date of the run. This is the change in rank per step for that group's mean, min, spread, median, max of the change in rank in your time step. And in this case, our time step is 1 hour, but let's say I could set it to 12. So now this is the change in rank per 12-hour chunks of this group. So a specific boat model init date, and for all the, and in this case, there's only one route, so that's why the values are the same. But if I just put it back on boat, you can now see each boat now has 17 routes. And so this is the change in rank per 12-hour time step for each boat, and the mean change in rank per time step, the min change in rank per time step, the spread change in rank per time step, etc. for each boat. And if you don't want it to be boat, you can group by however you want to group by. This one is now absolute time to finish. So this is just absolute time to finish, right? It's just a number. How many hours are left on the route? Again, grouped the same way, and it changes to reflect however you have it grouped. And you can also have it per route, so the absolute time to finish of each individual route. This is change in absolute time to finish per time step. And so those are the absolute charts. If you have a specific route selected, these are now the same charts, but they're just relative. So the change in the relative rank versus the selected route. So this is, instead of being the absolute rank, it's the relative rank, which is why it goes from 0 to plus. It's also why our selected route is always 0. This is change in relative rank per step. This is time to finish delta. And this is change in time to finish delta per time step. So this is really relative time to finish difference. And this is change in the relative time to finish difference for your selected route. All the other routes compared against your selected route. But again, if we change the way that we color code and we look at the group statistics, we're now no longer looking at individual routes. We're looking at however the groups are defined, and we're looking at the statistics of the groups relative to our selected route. So this page is all individual routes, grouping routes together, and visualizing absolute and relative metrics of time to finish, rank, relative rank, and change in time to finish, change in rank, change in relative rank over time. I'm going to skip over this page. This is a leaderboard page. This is every route individually. And again, if you have a route selected, so I'll just pick a route. And I go back here, and now you can see this is the time to finish, the absolute time to finish, the relative to my selected route time to finish, the delta, and it's just ranked here. I don't believe that this is that valuable. As the more I get into the graphs, the more I believe the value is in the graphs. This leaderboard on a route by route level is not super useful, but it's there. That brings us now to the boat page, and this is where I think really the heart of the value is. So first of all, it's similar to this page, except everything is always grouped by boat. And so rather than look at individual routes, we're just looking at boats. And for each boat is going to have like many polars because each boat is going to have many routes because it's routed against dozens of, hundreds of forecasts and different combinations of forecasts and weather currents and ocean models. So for a given boat, you're going to have a ton of different forecasts and different init times, etc., right? And so this page gives you the controls to statistically combine those routes, always by boat, and then compare the different rankings of the different ways of combining. Really what you're doing is you're collapsing all of a boat's routes into a single route, and then looking at that route. But then the question is, how are you collapsing all of those routes? So first, ignore these histograms. This is just a ranking. For each boat, again, we're looking at time to finish primarily. The time to finish for a boat, for n routes of that boat, there's a minimum time to finish, a maximum time to finish, a mean time to finish, and a median time to finish. That's what these are. Just the raw routes of the boats and the min, max, mean, and median for the time that you have selected. So as I move around, you can see the time to finish, of course, is changing as the route progresses over time. So at this time, just for all routes per boat, min, max, mean, median time to finish in absolute numbers, hours. But we can take all those routes per boat and we can create a statistical distribution. And if we have a large number of routes, we can create a statistical distribution using a Gaussian distribution or a generalized Pareto distribution, which is from extreme value theory. And if we have a statistical probability distribution, we can then look at the P1, P5, P10, P20, P80, P90, P99 probabilities of the time to finish from the statistical distribution of all routes for that boat as calculated by this distribution setting. And so that's what this page lets you do. And you can, of course, sort by them and see, define how the ranking, should the ranking obey the P1 probability or just the median of the routes of the time to finish. Also keep in mind, this page also respects temporal binning. We can put it to 1 hour. but it respects the reference boat. How are you binning? Again, this is coming from all your different, all the different routes for that boat. But you're still, if you're not on 1 hour, if you're temporally binning, you need to figure out, are you using the mean, median, min, max, etc. So how do you select your reference boat for relative routes? Up here, first of all, if you just select this, we've already selected a route, so it just automatically grabs the boat. But if we hadn't selected the route, we could just pick a boat from here. And then we can pick another boat, a competitor, just by clicking on it, and it doesn't change our reference boat. So that's what this is. This is the leaderboard, and it's the leaderboard by how you have this sorted. Am I using these values that come directly from all the routes per boat? Am I using these values that come from the probability distribution that I create from the routes and define either as a Gaussian or a GPD? And then similarly, this is absolute time to finish. This is relative time to finish in hours, the delta of every other boat compared to your reference. That's why this is all dotted line, dotted out, because my reference is this boat. I've clicked on this boat, but my reference is this boat, and therefore these are all relative to this boat, but still the min, max, mean, and median are coming from the routes directly, P1, P5, P10, P20, etc. I'm not going to go into what those numbers are, but if you know statistics, you know what those are. And relative, the whatever that value from all of the routes for that boat is, minus the value from the reference boat. And then similarly, this is relative rank, which is just an indexed version of relative time to finish, but it's just relative rank. And so you can sort by any of these things or whatever. But so that's what this leaderboard is. At the top, we have two rows of histograms. The histograms are all of the routes. Let me clear the selected. So you have a reference boat. The reference boat is your boat. It's the boat that either you've clicked on a route and it's that boat, or you've just picked your reference boat. That's generally your boat that everything is compared against. And then you can also have a clicked on boat, which is just like a selected competitor, let's say. So the first two histograms, they're the same, and the second two histograms are the same. I should change the UI, but the first two are always the histograms binned by the time to finish value. So it's all the routes binned by their time to finish, just of the reference boat. So I select this boat. This boat might have 100 routes. It might have 200 routes. We figure out at this time step for those 200 routes, what is the time to finish for this current time step? And then we generate a histogram of it for the reference boat. That's all these two histograms are. Then we do the same thing for whatever boat you click on. So I click on this boat. Maybe this boat doesn't have 200 routes. This boat might only have 150, or it might have 10 routes, whatever it has. And we say, okay, well, at this time, for each route, what is the position at this time? What is the time to finish? And then we build a histogram with it. So these are all the routes that are available at this time, binned by what their time to finish is. Now, here's where things get interesting. This chart up here is the this chart up here is the relative time to finish using this. It's not using the absolute. It's every. So okay, every route of your selected boat. You can see as I change my selected boat, this one changes, but it's using the mean of my reference boat. So the mean time to finish of my reference boat, every route from my selected boat, what is the delta time to finish against the mean of my reference boat? And it creates a histogram that way. And then it does the same thing with the relative rank, using the mean rank of my reference boat. These bottom two histograms are the pairwise, so these represent all the routes of every other of the selected competitor boat. This also represents all the routes of the selected competitor boat. These represent all the pairwise combinations of every, so it doesn't have to do with the Gaussian or statistics. It says, for my reference boat, I have a certain number of routes. For my clicked on boat, I have a certain number of routes. And therefore, I have n times m possible combinations of, I could choose route number 1, the other guy could choose route number 2. There's n times m combinations. For each one of those combinations, what is the delta time to finish? And what is the delta rank pair? And these are both pairwise. And so that's the difference in these. These are every specific individual route compared against the statistical this value of your reference boat. These bottom two are every pairwise combination of route, every pairwise combination of route between the reference boat and the clicked on boat. I can further, and again, this is for a particular time. So as I change this, my clicked on boat, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to show you that yet. But my clicked on boat changes, my clicked on boat is the same, but these histograms change because they just reflect from right now, meaning wherever I have this clicked, to for right now. But here's where things get interesting. I can now highlight histogram bins. And if I highlight those bins, it now shows me I'm excluding everything, all of my reference boat routes that are not in those bins. And I now get a route of, these are now these histogram bins, but over time. These are now my competitor boats, delta time to finish, but only using these routes over time. And these are the same as up here and up here. And I can further, and so then I can say, okay, well, what if I take my like really good time to finishes and my competitor takes like the really bad time to finishes. And that's what this shows you. And it shows you then the number of combinations and what the probability is of a win against your competitor. And this is doing it this is showing you these charts, which are these charts up here over time, which again, they're every one of your competitors' routes against your statistical mean or min or probability threshold. And then if I can also do the same thing, pick a different boat, but I can also then do the same thing for the pairwise. And so these two rows are now coming from the time series of these two histograms. These are the pairwise histograms. Okay, so that's a lot. So then that brings us now to the charts. So the charts, I'll just go through what they are. They're absolute rank, statistical. So again, absolute rank using the mean, min, max, median, which just pull the mean, max, mean, median from your route directly, from all the routes of each boat directly, or the probability thresholds, percentiles is the word I'm looking for, which to get the percentiles, you have to build the probability distribution, which is either Gaussian or GPD. So this is the absolute rank of your boats, again, always over time. And you click on a boat, whether I click on it here or I click on it on the chart, it updates to my reference boat. This is the absolute rank change per time step using the statistical approach for each boat's group of routes. And this is the relative rank to reference. So I have to have a reference boat. If I don't have a reference boat, I don't have anything to be relative against. So I have to have a reference boat for the relatives. Then I have relative rank change Then I have absolute rank change probability. And so this allows me to say, what is the probability that my change in rank per time step is less than or equal to some value. Then I have rank change. Okay, and so now those use the statistics, either mean, min, median, or max, which come from each boat's mean of all the routes for that boat, mean, min, median, max, right? Or they use the probabilistic values that come from take every boat, make a probability distribution, and find the percentiles of that probability distribution. But if I'm doing relative boats, I also have the option of doing pairwise combinations. And so that's what this, wherever you see pairwise, that's what it's doing. Let me just pick a boat. Okay, so I pick a boat. I don't know why that didn't work. Let me just scroll up here. Oh, do I have a reference? Okay, well, this is a little bit of a bug. Maybe, oh, that's why. Okay, I just scrolled off to the side. Sorry. If you ever get lost, you can always reset the graph. So I have a relative rank change probability statistical, and now I have pairwise values. So this is creating probabilities by taking every possible route of each boat and comparing them with every other route of each boat, and then I can make a probability. So that's what the pairwise probabilities are. And so I have relative rank change probability, overtake or lead reference probability. So this is the probability that a boat will overtake or lead the reference boat at a time step using the statistical methods. And then also overtake or lead reference boat probability pairwise, which is every possible combination of every possible boat against every possible route of the reference boat. What is the probability of all of those combinations that there is an overtake event or that boat leads? The other thing I can do with all of these is an init time comparison. So whatever the chart is, I can do a side-by-side comparison of two different init times, and I can see opportunities that are opening up with new forecasts. And so I can say, for instance, in this case, this had me at an 80% probability at this time step in that the 0Z, well, so this is a bad example because it's the 16th, but the 15th at 12Z and the 15th at 18Z, we can compare them and we can say, oh, I'm getting a new opportunity on 427. The 15th 12Z forecast gave me a 57% probability of an overtake or lead event on 427, but the latest forecast gives me an 80% probability. And so this is a new opportunity to me that I need to explore. Maybe we have an opportunity on 427 to really take the lead of these other boats. And then these last two types are overtake events, and whether we use the statistical methods or we're doing pairwise. Again, the pairwise is just every possible combination of route. Is there one event, or is there an event where one boat overtakes us or where we overtake another boat? That's the difference between these two graphs. And then similarly, statistically, rather than compare every possible route, just the mean, min, max, median, or the percentiles, is there an event where we overtake another boat or another boat overtakes us? Lastly, I'll just show things are complicated. So it's helpful to have like an AI that explains these to you, and that's what this does. The idea is this is an LLM that understands these charts, and so it can tell you how to use these charts and what they mean. It's never going to tell you go this way. It's just here to help you understand, well, here's what the probabilities are telling you. And so that's the analysis page, and thanks for watching.